Good evening, everybody. My name is Ananda Lennox. I am the still somewhat new director of the Close Community Coalition. I'm so happy to have you all here today. Full disclosure, I'm not used to being recorded, so I might be a little awkward at first, but I'll get used to it. According to Brian, we haven't met together for about a year, so I'm just glad to have everybody here. And I want to start off by giving everybody a chance to introduce themselves. We do have some new faces, and we are changing the structure a little bit. I'm looking into doing more of a steering committee setup, and then we can determine as the meeting goes on who wants to stay on as a sector rep, who's maybe thinking that they've done this for a really long time and need a break, and who's just wanting to stay on. So I'm going to start by having Chris start us off with introductions. And everybody, I just want you to tell us your name, how long you've been a part of the coalition, and what brings you here today.
So I'm Chris Rich. I've been a part of the coalition for a really long time. I don't know, 5, 6 years?
At least. I am a parent. I've had 3 kids go through the school system, and I'm here as part of the steering committee.
I'm Lisa Kelly. I remember like being invited when everything was all Zoom. I feel like it must have been when things opened up a bit, 21, 22-ish, something like that. I am a pediatrician. I work at Bay State, and I'm also the mom of 4, 3 who've made it through the schools, and one's getting out of middle school this year.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure he is, anyway.
I'm Doug Bixby. I'm the pastor of First Church in Long Meadow. This is my first meeting, and Ananda asked me if I'd be interested in being on the board. I've been at First Church for 2 years now. But I've pastored churches for 30 years, so 32 years. 2 other churches, one in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, and then one in Washington, Connecticut. But I was actively involved with the schools and community and on this level and other places, and very involved with recovery work. And our church, First Church, hosts many recovery groups, and so it's part of my work here too. So I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
I'm Kristen Espinosa, and this is my first meeting here. I just met Ananda. I am a child therapist that works with kids that are really struggling pretty badly, so really high-risk kids that struggle with trauma and substance abuse. I am part of the recovery community myself, so I have a lot of lived experience with all of this. I've lost people, and I'm really, really excited to be a part of this and get involved and share my knowledge of kind of where this all comes from a professional standpoint as well.
Hi guys, I'm Haley Matthew. I'm with the Hampton District Attorney's Office in the Community Safety and Outreach Unit. This is my first meeting here, so I'm brand new to the coalition. I also oversee the Hampton County Addiction Task Force, and we have a primary prevention working group, so that's how I got connected here. So I'm just grateful to be here, seeing how I can help. And our unit is also the prevention unit of the DA, so we do a lot of educating and presentations to elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools on substance use, healthy relationships, internet safety, things of that nature. So just here to see how I can help and spread the word.
Hi, I'm Nilda Arizari. I'm the Long Meadow Public Schools Director of Student and Family Support. I'm really grateful for the position. It's a new position within Long Meadow Public Schools, and it's the student-facing side. So I work a lot with different schools, whether it's teaching about bullying, whether it's working with families on bullying prevention, social emotional learning, thinking about ways that we can beef up our Tier 1 instruction so that students have better coping strategies for their mental health. I'm excited to be a part of the coalition, one, because this is a wonderful group, and I really think that we can come up with innovative ideas together, and I'm fortunate that I'm in a district that supports this kind of work.
Good evening, Marty O'Shea, Superintendent of Schools here in Long Meadow, and I've been with the coalition, I guess, since its inception in 2018, and so I'm really excited to be here tonight. I'm excited for Ananda's leadership and really a chance to reinvigorate the activity of this group. And I can sense that there's a ton of energy and commitment and talent and expertise in the room. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to support Ananda as she gets started as our coalition director. I can share with the team that she has already made an impact and is eager to make connections and stitch this community together in a way that can help our prevention work. So thanks for everybody joining us tonight.
My name is Carl Mazzaferro. I'm a captain in the Long Meadow Police Department. I am also a founding member of CLOSE. I was the original law enforcement rep. I have since became captain, delegated that to my lieutenant, Mike Jakowski, who's unable to be here tonight. I'm just excited to be here and get to meet everybody.
And rumor has it you came up with the name?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
I didn't know that.
yes. So,
Hi, I'm Candace Healy. Like Chris, I've been around for a while, and I'm a parent and also was supposedly representing some of the civic organizations for the steering committee. And then I roped somebody else into joining.
Give you credit, you wrote me too.
I know.
Yes. I joined the board wanting to join, to just do some of the work my wife does amazingly well. And then right when I joined, they said it was no longer a board. So I swung and missed right there. And I'm a physician as well, and have worked over the years with lots of people with addiction disorders. And I've seen how, when I was in medical school last century, it was considered a bad choice when people did drugs, and and now it's much more this is a disease that people need that needs to be treated, and that the treatment isn't a straight line. It's always there's always steps forward, steps back, which can be really frustrating, but when you understand that, it's a lot easier. And we have 3 boys. The last one is making his way through Long Meadow High School. I guess that's about it.
Brian Kazasio with LCTV, and been with CLOSE since the very beginning. And I'm excited that it's back. Usually I'm behind the camera doing the meetings, but I was asked to be part of the meeting today. And we hope to do a lot with your leadership going forward, get more stuff, get the word out. So.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. Could you do the next slide, Marty?
Sure.
Okay. So I just wanted to orient everybody. I don't have my glasses on right now, so I'm going to have to stand up and read this to you. And if anybody else needs help, you're not alone. But I just wanted to start with doing a basic organizational chart for everybody to understand our structure, because I gave you a lot of paperwork that you could read, but we could also just go over this together. So I figured this would be helpful. So right now, because we're funded through a drug-free communities grant, which is a federal grant, there's a lot of structure that's built in because we're a recipient of that money. If we didn't have that money, we could probably have any structure we want, but this is one of the things that we need to do. And I have to say, professionally, I just find it really helpful because it reminds you to be accountable all the time. Is this sector represented? Are we counting these dollars? Are we marking down everything that we've done? So what you can see is we've got Vivian Welsh as our youth rep, but she's a senior, so that's going to be a vacant position pretty much now because she couldn't make it this evening. She had one person that she suggested might be a good fit, but I haven't heard back from her yet. And then for parents, we have Chris Rich or Kristen Espinoza, or both, because I want more people. And so I have those 2 people for that role. Rachel Craze, the owner of the latest Craze, just signed on to be a steering committee member, but she couldn't make it today because of staffing issues, which I'm assuming is one of the tricky things with having a business sector rep in general, is that's going to come up a lot. But she's going to meet with me next week, and I'm going to catch her up to speed and hopefully have her in person more often. And then we have Brian from LCTV, who usually sits behind the camera, but I was like, no, if I'm going to be uncomfortable, you should be uncomfortable too. And then Nilda, it represents our schools. We do have a couple vacancies. Our youth serving organization is currently vacant, and both Shelley and Candace have been really helpful in providing suggestions. I have to say, off the top of my head, I would love to have Barry Jarvis from the Parks and Rec come on board. I'm just not sure if she has the bandwidth, and I haven't done a hard ask yet. But I did invite her to come to this evening, but she was in Nichawag, some other district today, doing something, and so she wasn't sure she could make it, so she might. But we do need to look into that, so if not her, I think you had suggested, I think you or Shelley had suggested, like, the running club, Long Meadow Running Club is very active.
Oh, the
and-
track, youth track.
Yeah, youth track. We were trying to get the Boy Scouts
Mhm.
person, but she's too busy.
Okay.
But I'm open to suggestions. If you know of somebody who's doing like a youth organization work that could fit on our board, feel free to reach out to me, because these are
Youth
just
track.
my first thoughts. We do have Reverend Doug Bigsby for Faith Base coming on board. Thank you so much, because that was a vacancy. We had somebody before who had retired. And then Candace Healy, who's been here forever and was actually in my position for a while when there was nobody here. And then we have not one, but two doctors. We've got Dr. Lisa and Taylor Kelly and Dr. Andrew Healy. Do either of you work in substance use disorders by any chance?
So at Bay State, I worked a lot with patients who came through a high-risk obstetrician. And then, so treating patients and then also help generating policies.
Mhm.
Presently, I'm in Connecticut now.
But you
So,
live here.
I'm sorry?
But you live here.
But I live here, yes. So not really
Okay.
doing that.
I'm just saying because you might be a soft fit for other organizations with expertise in substance use disorders. So if it ever feels like we have too many doctors in one field, we can keep both of you. have
We
you
used to
both go
harass each other because I'm on the receiving end.
She gets the babies.
I
Not
get,
anymore.
yeah, I work with the babies, so I work with moms, like, from that parenting perspective, but, so that's my.
If Chris stays, you can move me into that one.
That's what I was gonna
That's right,
say.
that's right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, this is all good. Do you ever have parents that come in with substance use disorders?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. 'Cause I had a friend that worked on that realm too, on the court side, and just talking
Yeah.
about how difficult that is. It's like
Yeah.
as soon as a mother tests positive for any type of drug.
Yeah,
like
a lot of
that-
policy, I think good policy changes going on right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we might have no vacancies by the end of this meeting, but that's what we have. And then you have me as the director and the coordinator. It's a combined position. Sometimes in coalitions, they have two. I just get to be both. And then our fiscal agent is the town of Long Meadow, and we're pretty much overseen by the school district. They provide the office space, they keep the electricity on, they manage, me getting paid and all of the fringe benefits that go along with it. So that's who we are right now. I know in the past you had different formations for your board. There was like more parents coming in. I talked to all of you at one point individually about what you were hoping for moving forward. And what I heard from you was that you want to feel like there's a reason to be here, that you're not just here to listen to somebody talk, that you want it to be pertinent to what you do as well, so that it's not just, I showed up, I did a thing, but it doesn't mean anything to me other than I feel like I'm doing something for a good cause, and just being mindful of everybody's time. Because the other thing is, like, I know Candace probably the best here, and I see you everywhere. Like, she was at the
Was
DA's
that your
award
thing
ceremony.
today? That was awesome. I
It was
loved
so
it.
good,
I
right?
loved it. One of my favorite events.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Just so that I don't leave people in the dark, we were at the district attorney has this youth advisory board, and they take kids, is it from Hampden County exclusive? Yeah, all over Hampden County. There were at least 2 Long Meadow kids there that presented, and I shared all their pictures with our principal, and I think he shared it with you, Marty. And then I saw students from West Side, which was nice because I just left there. And I saw John Provost was there, and just a whole bunch of people. And so it was nice to see all of that support, and it was so well done. And it's rare to go to things that have really good food, and the food was also really good. The food was really good. All right, so that's where we're starting from. Could you go to the next slide, Marty? So this is part that's going to be boring for the people watching in television land, but I wanted to make this meeting something that we could actually get work done during, so that I'm not sending you home with homework. Like, I have this skills and interest inventory that's in that packet I just passed out for you. If you flip to, so the first part is just for you to, look at when you have time. But if you go to, oh wow, there's a lot of pages in here, my apologies. It's right at the back. So the last 2 pages, page 16, is a skills, interest, and availability questionnaire. And our first assignment for today is I'd like everybody to fill this out. We've had conversations, but it would really be helpful for me to know exactly what people are interested in doing, what you absolutely have no interest in doing, and what kind of time you could actually give. So does anybody, I only have 2 pens, but does anybody need a writing implement? You need one? Okay.
Let me see. Yeah, this is school, that's true, although they do everything
Yes,
online.
yes, it's true.
I think that is my only. Let me look and see if that.
Okay.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to pass around a form called the Coalition Agreement Form for each sector rep. And if you guys are planning on staying with the board, it'll be something that we can just sign tonight, and I'm going to keep as a record so that if we ever need it for re-upping our grant.
Ananda, did you say you had a pen?
Yes.
I have an extra pen too, so let's go.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Oh, I think Fran needs one.
I have another one too.
Okay.
I have my gold pens at that point.
It's
so.
funny, I haven't ordered any inventory for the coalition yet, other than like mailings, and so I was going through my office, and I'm like, I have exactly 3 pens.
No, there's a,
There was a pile somewhere, wasn't there?
there's a bin, a big plastic bin for the tabling. That's where they are.
No looking at anybody else's papers. You know what's really nice about this as an observer? Kristen, are you the only left-handed person in the room? Oh, you are as well, but you're not doing it. Okay.
I was wondering why it was taking everybody so long.
Oh, you just realized? We're just really into it.
This is like the MCAS, and you were the first one.
Yeah.
She thought, I was always there. No, I always took the longest on all the tests.
It doesn't matter how long it takes, you do your best.
You'll have to run a commercial during this part of the meeting or something like that.
I think so, I know.
Oh, that's right, you can edit.
Oh, because it's just being recorded?
Yeah. We are live right now. This is, it's riveting television.
Is it the outtake?
I don't really love the meetings being recorded.
We can talk about that.
That's one of my personal opinions, because I don't feel like you can be as open and honest when it's being aired on TV and you have no idea. Like, I had my neighbor be like, I just saw you on TV, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that everything I was saying was going to be.
When Paul was in charge near the end, I think there was a lot, we split it. I don't know if you remember that. So like, it's good because it gets the community, like your neighbor saw that, which is great. That means they know Close exists, and I think that's why
Important.
we do it. It's
Right.
important. But also, I think near the end, what he did do was he would do the informational stuff. We would broadcast that.
Yeah.
He would end it,
Yeah.
and then that conversation can happen without it being aired.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like, if there's like a presentation in the
Yes.
beginning, do that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what he was doing near the end, because he had a lot of information to give, and then they want to talk freely. So
Mhm.
I think that's a good compromise, because I think that the fact that your neighbor saw it is a good
Mm-hmm.
thing that people know Close exists, so.
And to have
Leslie.
your face show up, you know, like if it were just the presentation and then everybody was like, who is this coalition?
Mhm.
They'd be like, oh, Candace is part of it and everybody else is part of it. That's great.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, no, I agree. It is a bit inhibiting.
It is like, you know, I don't realize until I'm here. It is nerve-wracking a little bit, yeah.
Welcome to the other side.
Right, I know. You don't get on this side of the
But
camera.
I
no.
think having the information is good,
Mhm.
and then having the cameras go dark, and then you can have that open conversation is good as well.
And just because I don't want anybody to get writer's cramp, I have a sign-in sheet as well with another thing to circle, but we'll do that at the end so that you can relax for a little bit.
Should we tear these off?
Yeah, you can tear those. I'll start collecting them, but no rush if you're not done. That's okay.
Right.
Look at the program, and there's a way to come back. Yeah.
Thank you.
For me.
That and those two, right?
Is this the contract form?
That's a template, but I might.
If you need to leave one of those pictures.
Yours?
No, it starts from
Okay.
So that's
That's
right.
fine. So how about if we just have you come on when you can be here, but I will put you in an official role so that there's no pressure on you to come when you don't want to come. Does that work? Okay, that sounds good. Because I will say, I wasn't sure how this works out. Like a specific role, because I know we have like pressure to go there. This is bad. Something to presentation. You're gonna need it for yourself by the end of that.
Oh.
I have a picture of a poster that I saw at the first church in like the birthday is right. I saw it the other day. It's a picture from the garden. Yeah, something I don't. Marty, would you mind putting it on the next slide just so I can start mentally preparing?
Oh. I'm done. Were you waiting for me? I'm sorry.
You thought you were first.
I'm always behind.
I'm not sure. No, Andrew still has his.
Or you can take my photo too, either way.
I think Lisa just finished, so if there was a oh, wow. I don't know if it was a competition, but it was a tie.
Oh, it's always a competition with those two.
I'm too sleep deprived. Think straight right now. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning.
Hey, Kristen, now you are officially the last row. You're doing great. You're in the final stretch. I was just watching a track meet on the field. You're just like gonna kick it. You don't have to wait for me. Okay.
Yeah.
You can multitask, okay. All right, so thank you so much, everybody, for just being good sports about all the homework. For me, it is going to be really helpful to just know what, after having conversations with most of you, just to know and have notes on paper. It will really sink into my brain what you're here for, what you're capable of doing, and what you really want to avoid. So without further ado, I'm going to spend a little bit of time just catching everybody up to speed with what the coalition, which at this point, sorry, is like mostly me and a few other people who have been like, look at this, is this okay? But so for the people that weren't part of the coalition before or just weren't there, I just want to catch you up. So following in, I think this is a years-long campaign that's been going on for Close, is there's something called the social host laws that that you would know a lot about. But there's laws out there that I don't think every parent is aware of, which is that it's illegal to host underage parties. Like if you own a property or you have possession of a property and there's underage drinking and anything goes awry, you're liable for that sort of stuff. And so that's something that we feel like we should really spread the word about. And the other is that I know the community had a really big loss 3 years ago, and this poor teen that died is not the first that's died in a drunk driving accident, but there's a lot of dangers that go with young people getting impaired and then making impulsive decisions to go driving. So what we have right now is a lawn sign campaign that before I even came on board, there was a lot of wordsmithing. And so the text that they came up with on one side is when parents host, everyone loses. It's illegal, it's unsafe, and it's costly. And then on the other side, it says ignoring teen drinking equals allowing teen drinking. It's your home, but our problem. I'm curious for people who weren't part of the coalition before, if the message is clear to you, because I was thinking, nowhere on it does it say social host, or nowhere on it, like there could be some ambiguity. So I'm just curious for people who aren't aware of that law, if you're still getting the main message of like allowing drinking leads to bad things. Yeah.
I would
Okay.
say so.
Okay. Good. All right.
I'm aware of the law, like I know what it is,
Yeah.
but what does that mean? What really happens if there was an issue?
Well, there's a civil issue, but for criminally, it would be if depends what the situation is. I guess it depends. If a parent's hosting a party or knowingly host a party, you can charge them with keeper of a disorderly household. But you can also procuring the minors alcohol. It really depends what the scenario is, and what the involvement the parent has. So it depends on the scenario, the
Is it
situation.
true that the parent doesn't even have to have involvement? Like, if somehow there's alcohol at your house
Mhm.
that you did not provide,
Mhm.
and people leave your house and get in an accident,
Mhm.
you're still liable for that.
It can be,
correct?
yeah.
Is that civil or criminal?
It could be both. It could be, you're definitely not the civil aspect, but it could be a criminal aspect. I mean, the knowingly furnish the alcohol is different than somebody going in and taking it, so.
That gets to the ignoring is basically allowing.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh.
The one question I'd have, and I find it interesting, it seems like there's more and more marijuana use with, and also a lack of awareness of impairment
Yes.
while driving under the
Yes.
influence.
Yeah.
So when we say
Yes.
ignoring teen drinking, it emphasizes one form of
Yes.
substance, but it just seems to me that that's gotten broader, and maybe with youth, it's even a bigger problem
Yeah,
than alcohol use. So I'm just wondering
right.
where that leads us.
Might just mean that next year we have to look at redesigning this again and having it be more like, without watering it down too much, but like impaired driving, or, you know, something that tries to encapsulate on this 12 by 18 sign or 18 by
Right,
24
that's
inch
the thing,
sign.
we only have
Yeah.
so many words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was noticing, I
Flip
already
it.
put some up on the street, and Carl was just telling me that I put them up illegally, so I'll fix that for them.
Is that criminal or
It's our tree belts.
Yeah.
So,
They just pull them out on you.
yes.
I put them right next to the Family Fun Fest one, so I was just following suit. So does that mean that there was a precedent set and then I'm okay?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. But no, I think that's a really good point. And I think that's something we could definitely pursue next year with maybe a little bit more wordsmithing and trying to expand it. Or we could take advantage of both sides of the sign and maybe make the messages slightly different. You know, it could address drinking and marijuana with a maybe.
The one thing I learned, my daughter was part of the youth advisory board, is and she was very passionate about vaping and the teens, and so, because they hide a lot of the marijuana into the vapes now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the great things about the committee is the data that gets collected
Yeah.
from the school and what students are doing.
Yeah.
To, you know, to your point,
Right.
Yeah.
and just making sure families are aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't that long, well, maybe it was, I don't know, I feel like, I think my oldest, who's now 24, but I feel like when he was in high school, there was like some awful statistic of like 36 or 38% of the seniors had either driven while high or
Been in the
been
car.
in the car with a high driver.
Mhm.
In the last month or something like that.
Yeah.
It was outrageous,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think this was more for the hosting the parties, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if we can put everything on the sign that needs to be
Yeah.
said, but I think that your
Yeah.
point is so important because it was actually at a PAC meeting, which is the high school's parent advisory council, which is parents, like 2 months ago, when a parent literally said, I don't even know, are you allowed to drive when you're, and I was like, no. But I
Yeah.
couldn't believe
But that's
it.
the level of ignorance, and I don't
That's what I'm
understand
saying.
that,
It's
Yeah.
like a very well-educated,
Yeah.
very involved parent, but because it's legal, people think.
Right. Well, it's harder to enforce.
Right.
So I find, you know, in working with kids, I have some parents that are now purchasing edibles for their kids because they're like, oh, I'd rather you have an edible than be on antidepressants. And so they are furnishing their kids with these. And then, you know, little kids are getting into them by accident and like all kinds of different things are going on. So it's widespread in a lot of different ways. So I really liked your point with that because if you're handing your extremely high functioning AP level student with, you know, terrible anxiety, the edibles, and then they drive off, you know, they're not thinking about that, so.
Well, and I've had people in recovery for alcoholism, and then when marijuana was legalized, they're
Oh.
Okay.
like, is that an option? You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, it's not really an option. But-
Yeah, it is an option, it just
Can't
might not be a
drink
So
good.
it's just, it's a
Says
new
one
gray
thing.
area, I think. So it's
Yeah.
under, driving under the influence, or,
Yes.
Yeah.
is a little broader than drinking.
There's some signage now on 91 about driving high.
Great.
There is?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, all
Go
I've
pay
seen is
attention to
come
these.
by,
All the
come by.
dispensary
You're
signs.
clearly not spending enough time in traffic. No, I've definitely seen them there.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
between all the dispensaries.
Dispensaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can, like, from my end, moms, you know, interviewing moms, getting the history, they often are using marijuana because it's natural. So it's
Mhm.
got to be
Right.
better
Yeah.
than,
Mhm.
yes.
Could you do the next slide, Marty, please? So, that being said, we have to address marijuana, we definitely will. I gotta say, when I came on board and was talking with everybody, the consensus was like, Long Meadow likes to drink. And so I was like, okay, I wanna get ahead of that. But this is, we can go through this real quick. This is just the postcard that's accompanying the lawn sign campaign, so this is going to all 9th to 12th grade families. We could talk at some point of maybe dropping it down to 8th through 12th grade families. I don't know this community well enough yet to know like what, if parents are hosting parties for 8th graders, that sounds insane for me. You know, I think of it more as like a graduation tradition and like that kind of coming of age thing where this is more of a risk. But this postcard goes out and it's too small to read, but we have just a stat letting people know that most families from the survey year of last year, this is from the kids actually saying that their parents don't let them drink, and just saying, okay, that's great, and then some information about what you can do instead, and then there's a link to the talk campaign, so that you just know how to talk to your kids, and then up there's a QR code to our parent survey that I'm trying to distribute as far and wide as possible. Oh, thanks, Marty. I still can't read it, but that's because I need glasses.
It's an eye test.
But it goes over the social host law. So the law in Massachusetts is clear. Whoever furnishes alcohol to a person under 21 years of age shall be punished by a fine of up to, is it $2,000 or imprisonment for up to a year or both? So this postcard is trying to do like, let them know we have a survey going out there. Let them know that there's a Talk They Hear You campaign so you can get some tips on how to have conversations with your kids about this topic, the social host law, and also just alternatives for what you can do to still have like a celebratory season without feeling like you're being like, I don't know, making it less fun for them. So that went out already. I think it went out yesterday. Has anybody seen it?
I got the naloxone.
You got
I
the
got
naloxone.
that one.
What
I
day
got
did you get it?
Naloxone one too.
I got it yesterday.
Yesterday, perfect. So has anybody seen this one yet?
No.
Okay, so let me.
So you wouldn't be sending it to rising high school students?
No,
Okay.
no.
Not yet, but
I'm
you're
a
thinking.
I'm a nobody right now.
Yeah, does anybody, well, Candace, you have a high school student, right?
Correct.
Yeah, did you get this postcard yet?
No.
Okay, all right, let me know if it, I'll check with you in a couple of days, because I haven't paid the invoice yet, so I want to make sure it gets mailed.
Okay.
All right, next slide, please.
So in that first paragraph, I just wanted to say.
Oh, sure.
That if you just said furnishing alcohol or other drugs,
Right.
would.
Yeah.
Does that
would-
cover it?
Well, it's not just furnishing.
Yeah, there's,
Like if it happens in your home, even if you didn't furnish it.
Mhm.
you
Like, here's some
still-
gummies, I mean, that's
Yeah,
a classic
yeah.
example.
Mhm.
It just would expand the impact of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm just not sure, does the social host law address just alcohol, or does it address?
I think it just dresses alcohol.
I think it just addresses
Oh, okay.
alcohol,
Mhm.
yeah,
Fair.
yeah. So I could change the language, but I would be really wrong.
Okay.
And
So
shame
you
on you
are,
if you're doing it.
Yeah, you are allowed to. I'm not
No,
endorsing-
no, it's just that-
I was like, I'm missing something. We're allowed to-
The social host law, it just pertains
Pertains
to
to-
alcohol,
okay.
and I think it came
Yeah.
onto the scene because of like drunk driving accidents, the amount of
Yeah.
liability, the loss of
Right,
life, and so they were like, we need to make sure that the people furnishing these young people are actually being held accountable, because we need to curb this. It is illegal, as far as I know, to provide illicit substances to anybody underage. Alcohol is a legal substance, so like, if you wanted to, you could serve your kid beer. Like, there's actually no law saying you can't.
Sure.
But I do think that there might be some negligence suit, filed if you're providing them opioids or, like anything that, I don't know, where does marijuana fall on that now?
Well, it's still.
'Cause it's still
a
federal.
class-
Still an age.
Yeah, it's still Class D
Yeah.
substance, but it's just legal.
Yeah, yeah,
There's some
So.
parents.
yeah. So if you haven't received this yet, this is a mailing that went to the entire district, and Nilda gets a lot of credit for this, because we met and she was like, we need to make sure that everybody knows about this, because you had been in a meeting recently where you were kind of surprised, just like you were by a parent, about like, oh, they're asking me if it's okay to do this. And so naloxone, to me, because I've been in this profession for so long, is like, oh, this is a great thing. You give it to people, it revives them, whatever. But when we had a tabling event with STAND, which is the student group. It's Students Together Against Negative Decisions that Shelley Warren leads. On my first day of work here, they had Tapestry Health come in, and they had a table by the exit to the high school, and they had free samples of Narcan, and they had little bracelets, and students would come up and they're like, what is this? And as soon as they heard free, they're like, well, what are you giving away for free? And so they described that it was an opioid reversing drug, and a lot of kids took it. And I think you got 2 calls from parents?
calls, yeah.
I don't know if they were upset calls or just concerned calls.
Yeah, kind of queries. I'd say one was, why?
Yeah.
And then the other was more curious, trying to understand it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the school committee actually has a policy that right now is up for public comment, which sort of changes, I think, kind of fits with this in terms of changing perspectives on naloxone. So
Yeah.
they first had a Narcan distribution policy in 2018, and it was very restrictive in terms of like, it was treated like it was some over-the-counter medicine almost. And so to the school committee's credit, they're trying to sort of ensure that it can be more easily distributed, but I think the intention is to make sure if there is a distribution to students that it's connected to a substance use education program, so that it's not just distributed in a vacuum without any context.
Right,
So,
right.
and then also some notifications to families when we are, when students have the opportunity to get a dosage kit. Which again, I think is a good thing because it raises awareness and perhaps changes perspectives. the
And
way
prompts
you're-
some conversations.
Prompts some conversation, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when I'd heard that they'd gotten a couple calls, and then Nilda was like, we need to do more communication, it made me think I tried to take off the professional hat and just think as a parent for a minute, and just thinking about, I can't send my kid in with aspirin. Do you know what I mean? Like, it has to go to the nurse, and there has to be an order. And so I could see just on that level alone where a parent would be like, what? Like, just please explain to me what's happening here. Like, I've only heard Narcan or naloxone linked with fentanyl. Like, I could see how that would raise a couple flags. And so this design, other than some color changes and personalizations, is basically what the CDC put out. I don't think they did a mailer, it was more like an information sheet, but I really like their language about it being a safe and life-saving medication, like just including that word safe. And then there's language in there explaining that there's no harm done by giving somebody naloxone. It's not going to hurt you. Even if you give it and there's no opioid in somebody's system, it's still not going to hurt them. It won't help them. It's only going to help if there's an opioid present in their system. But again, I thought that was really good. And again, another QR code linking to our parent survey in case anybody wants to take it, trying to give everybody every opportunity possible. But yeah, so I was just really careful, like, not to use any language arguing a point, but just here's some information. It's not dangerous, it's safe, and just put it out there. And this went through to every family in the district, so no grade restrictions, just everybody who has a kid in the district should get it. So, Kristen, did you get it?
I did.
Good. Yeah, because I remember when we were doing the mailing, you want all parents or just Longmeadow? I'm like, no, all parents. So,
You know what's funny? I got that in the mail and I was like, I'm gonna bring that to the meeting. That's awesome. They should do that.
The print on the back
it's
is
really
really
small.
tiny.
Yeah.
If it could
I
be
started off bigger, but the company that we used, PIP, was like, they need the whole bottom clear because they use some kind of mailing
Oh.
label thing. So then I had to shrink everything. So I
Got it.
apologize because I couldn't read it either. So I was like, well, maybe the parents of kindergartners with younger eyes would do okay with it. All right, next
We've
slide,
been
please.
giving that out at the hospital for years.
Naloxone?
Like, yeah, and it's actually even more, they're like, I forgot the name, these kits where people who are actively using can take them, which include a lot of different things, just to, if they're gonna use to make it safer, but it also includes naloxone, and family members of those people are allowed to take it.
Nice.
So that's been going on for years, and I think it's, from a medical perspective, like, God forbid some kid overdoses, like, having just another kid there who has their naloxone is life-saving.
Yeah, yeah.
That video I sent you.
Oh, thank you for making me cry first thing in the morning.
Sorry.
I was so taken aback by that. Yeah, I haven't shared it with the committee yet, but I will. Yeah.
It was a video that I saw on social media where a 16-year-old boy carried another 16-year-old boy to his mother's front steps and tried to like stuff him into a chair, and he was clearly unconscious. And it turned out he was overdosing. And the mom came outside, saw this, gave him naloxone, and it ended up taking 4 hits for him to come out of it. And, you know, it's all on her Ring camera video, and she's doing CPR on her front steps on her son until the police got there and took over for her. And, you know, she was like, this child's alive, because there were 4 of them, you know.
Yeah.
Even if you had one, wouldn't have been enough for him, so.
Yeah, yeah, it was very emotional, like, just even seeing the friend who brought him there, like, just another 16-year-old not knowing how to handle, like, he was so clearly distressed, and,
And he wouldn't tell her at first what happened.
yeah,
So.
yeah, so it was very, very, very powerful. And when I see stuff like that, I think I'd like the committee to see it, because it's one of those things where I'm like, I mean, it was on Facebook, people could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get a little nervous about like whether I want the Close Coalition to put it on their Facebook page. And that's just me always being afraid of, like, I don't know.
This is the reality though.
I know, but you'd be surprised at what people think is the reality and what they think is like too much. But anyhow, I'll share it with the group and then we can come up with it. But I found it incredibly powerful. Next one.
I think
Marty?
it's important too with the, as a parent, I know there have been times I've been to an event where I'm just like, this is too much, I
Mhm.
can't handle.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be, it's important to have, that we're educating and providing that, and having, we're not back in the 80s with, you know, like with
Scare tactics.
scare tactics
Yeah.
to educate, but not to scare people away.
Right, right.
So I don't know how.
And I think that's a hard line to draw, because
Yeah.
like if you work with people that are experiencing this and this is a reality you see day in and day out, you're still going to find it upsetting, but it's not shocking to you necessarily. And for other populations, it can be almost like vicariously traumatizing. And so we don't want to traumatize our population. We just want to get the information out there. I was really happy to see there's a group called Operation Parent that has a lot of webinars that are free, and I've been trying to share them as widely as I can. And one that I watched the recording of, there's a doctor going around that's doing presentations on like kind of getting your kid to launch into college, like what do you need to be ready for and whatever. And one of her big pushes is sending them with a first aid kit that includes Narcan. She was like, you know, these kids are going to be like global ambassadors. They're going to go to all these new worlds, all these different cultures, all these different social circles. They don't know what they're going to see. Hopefully most of it is going to be wonderful, but wouldn't you want your kid to be equipped to save a life if something horrible was happening? You know, and also just pressing, I think parents sometimes push back on like, well, my kids never, like, they don't use that stuff and whatever. And it's like also trying to drive home the message that Narcan is not for personal use. Like if your kid has Narcan, it's not because your kid's at
It's not
risk
gonna-
of
it's not
overdosing.
gonna help your
You
kid.
can't reverse an opioid reversal for yourself, but you can do it for somebody else. So, and I think that might be helpful for parents sometimes, because it does allow them to have that protective distancing, like, okay, I could see that I want my kid to be able to help if that's the case. And then the other thing that I think is going away, but it's still there, especially if you don't have a lot of opioid education, is like, it wasn't that long ago that, remember, EMTs would be on the news saying that they had secondhand fentanyl exposure, and then years later, a lot of that has come back to be like, that was actually kind of a panic attack, and that it's really hard to get, you know, exposure. But as a layperson, and you hear that on the news, and then you're like, wait, I'm supposed to now rescue, breathe, and touch this, like, there's a lot of fear around it. So just trying to, you know, baby steps, going like naloxone. For all of us who've been doing this for a while, we're like, yes. But for parents, maybe even parents who have like fifth graders, they're like, what does this have to do with me? So it's just like, what I'm hoping we're going to do is desensitize them to the good stuff. You know, like, don't be afraid of naloxone. There's no reason to be afraid of naloxone. And I just want to normalize it. I think it should be in first aid kits. I'd like to see it in the AED boxes. I just wrote to the fire chief to just say, like, could we pick up on that conversation? Because I guess he tried that a year or so ago, and there was some pushback from the community.
Okay.
Not widespread,
Wasn't
but just,
aware.
but vocal,
Yeah.
you know. And so just trying to figure out, like, well, what kind of, so again, this is all good. This is all like, let's get the message about naloxone out to the community. Like, oh, this isn't a scary thing, you know, like.
Could we have like a parent event? Like,
Yeah.
That's what I was.
To have-
I could do something like that. and,
What are you
more careful,
thinking?
I suppose.
Like, what do you think would be the draw?
I remember, because I went to a naloxone event at the library,
Mhm.
probably before the pandemic. I think it was like a CPR training and they passed it out. This was years ago, but
Yeah, Paul put that on.
I don't know, like if that was the main draw, I don't know how helpful. People would probably be like, oh, we don't need that. But if it could be piggybacked onto something else so parents can know, like if there were some sort of,
If you had a speaker, then also do
that,
Yeah.
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 I thought our goal in town was everywhere there was an AED to have naloxone.
That's what she's saying. Apparently
Yeah.
there was
I guess
pushback.
there was pushback when they did this a year or so ago. I don't remember the
Yeah.
timeline, but I'm revisiting it because I just feel like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that people initially are like, I don't really want this, like a medical marijuana dispensary.
I like the strategy of friends helping friends because
Yeah.
I think parents are more receptive to the idea that their kids could help somebody else with the problem.
Yeah.
And if you're saying that you can't even use it for yourself, that you have to use it for another person, that might be an easier tack
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
build community support.
That elevates their kid.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, my
Long
kid's
Meadow
helping the
parents
ones with
love
the
that.
problem.
Right.
Is it,
No,
They can put it on their
right,
resume. They
you
can
know
put it
what
on
I'm
their
saying.
resume.
I think
I'm
it's any
married.
parent. Any parent wants their kid to help
Yeah,
somebody else.
no, I think it's
Sure.
great.
Yeah, CPR certified.
See, they can put it on the resume. Haley, this morning, one of the students did a video about this, where they had given, it was actually a very, very powerful video, and it was just all acting by the students. Are those videos available?
Oh, yeah, of course.
They're on that
Maxlight actually
website, right?
just did an article and they posted it, and there were a few QR codes on the back of the
Right, I
agenda.
saw that, yes.
I honestly can share those links with Ananda and she can share with all you guys.
I already have them, and
Oh,
I can
okay.
share them with the
Yeah.
committee. I shared them with the principal and Marty, I think, because I shared photos from the Long Meadow kids, and then there was a link to all of the projects that all of the YAB kids did,
Mhm.
and everything's there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
one of them was just really powerful because it was literally kids who are trying to study and how they could so easily just take a pill from a friend that because they're told, no, it's just gonna help you stay awake longer.
Right.
And that was one of the videos, and so it might be, it was the youth advisory board, and I'm not gonna say it right, but their idea is, it's peer leaders kind of being able to educate other kids, and so they speak the same language as the kids, and so those videos might be helpful, I would think, too,
Yeah.
for us to share on our,
Yeah.
on our
Especially if you
social
want to
media.
reach kids. Kids are going to listen
Right.
to other kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the breadth of what they produced, it was video games, books, posters, PSAs, videos. I'm probably forgetting a few other things. They had a whole booklet they created on what are these drugs?
Yeah.
What are drugs? How do you reverse them?
They even did their own research too.
Yeah, it was really, and they're such good orators.
Mhm.
I was that was a dream team, watching it.
Ananda, is it possible to have, in the health, and maybe this is a question for you two, is it possible in the health classes to go over naloxone
They do, so.
and to hand it out, with parent, a permission
They,
slip?
So it was 6th to 8th grade, they definitely have curriculum that talks about all different kinds of drugs. But opioid usage has been a major focus within the past few years. And then 9 to 12, they definitely bring in naloxone with Megan Roy, and they show them how to use it. They pass out a pamphlet that says, this is when you use it, this is what happens if you were to use it. They watch a video, and they all go home understanding how to use it if it were necessary in the moment. And there is a little letter that goes to the families, just sharing what they're doing within this
What
unit.
grade? I've never had that. with-
9th grade, they definitely go over it with the peer leaders, and Shelley Warren supports this lesson. And I know junior year, there's another focus on it.
I hate to say this, but I'm with Chris, I've never seen
Never
anything.
seen it.
Have you asked them?
I
I've
think
seen
she
others.
needs the
No,
letter
There
home.
was a program a few years ago where they did mass trainings, they like get
Yeah,
everybody.
they
Yeah.
definitely
I know that.
still do it.
Megan
Yeah.
did.
Oh, see,
Megan
the
did it.
girl. She told
They
you.
hold on.
Yeah, they
I
definitely
only
still do
have
it,
one.
and
They're
then
not told me a thing.
I know peer leaders go in and help talk about it. Students can raise
Wow.
questions, and the peer leaders answer each other, and then an email goes home announcing it.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the letter that goes to families too.
It's interesting.
Chris, where have we been?
Maybe we're
You
off
need to
the
read your
list.
email.
Right.
I did get kicked off the list at one point.
I chose that, I made that.
Yeah. She complains too much.
So we don't want, it's so interesting to see that the synergy that is around this, because, so we had the activity that Milda described happening in our health classes, and then we had the Narcan distribution table that Ananda described, where kids were able to pick up the kits. And then that led to a policy discussion at the school committee where they really wanted to support Narcan distribution, but do it in a way that ensured that we notified parents and everything. And then that led to a conversation to do the mailing. And then that led to a conversation where Nilda and Ananda are doing a training with our administrators this month, our principals and assistant principals on Narcan use. So it's just interesting from my perch just to see the synergy and then to hear about it at the youth advisory board. So, and credit to Ananda for kind of initiating this chain reaction in Nilda and sort of making it happen. So it's a lot of just positive motion on this, which is. it's
And
neat
then
to see.
all of our conversations have led to, we want to host a webinar for families.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last time we held a webinar, we had 38 or so families tune in. Because we're finding now that sometimes the evening events families can't make it to, but just a quick hour, either off from work or a recording that's sent out to families that they could watch at any time. We saw that families did click on the link, they did register for the event, and so we thought talking either to Megan Roy, who would share what we do in our health classes regarding opioid usage, and then we could have Ananda speak, maybe me, maybe a student sort of share. We were even thinking of maybe having someone in recovery just share the experience. But now we have a parent who could also be on our panel.
Yeah.
So, that's our hope before the end of the year, just to host a spring webinar and have it be a recording that we also send out to families. That's still in the works, but that's the next
Yeah.
level of this conversation that keeps going.
Yeah, and then Detective Lieutenant Mike Drakowski and I are doing a pop-up Narcan training on May 25th. I keep forgetting if it's the 25th or the 29th, because we're doing one in September as well at the Long Meadow Shops. So that's going to be where we table for 3 hours under a tent, and just any walker-bys, we're like, hey, do you want a free thing of Narcan? Have you ever learned how to administer it? And this is something Paul used to do with Mike in the past, so I was like, that sounds great, let's keep it up. So once we get our license agreement signed with the Long Meadow Shops, we're good to go. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we've got the ball moving in the right direction. And there's also another group, was it like Alan or Timmy's kids or something?
Timmy Strong?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
also do Narcan training
Oh,
with
they
the
do?
youth, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know
And I
that.
think that's 10th grade.
Okay.
So they are getting hit at different ages and stages with the information, but it is interesting to hear what trickles down to the parents and what doesn't. I'm also a mom of 3 boys, so I know nothing, ever. I know when they're hungry and when they want me to pick them up from practice early.
And when they need money.
Yeah. Very true. So if we don't get through this whole agenda, I'm not worried about it, but I did want to go through this real quick. This is like a campaign I saw years ago that really stuck with me, because even though I grew up in Attleboro, which was not far from North Attleboro, and it was mostly suburban, I had an uncle who had a landscaping company, and he used to always give us rides on his tractor, and it was like the coolest thing. So when I saw this campaign probably about 10 years ago talking about how dangerous this tradition is and how it needs to stop, I remember my first initial reaction was this emotional one of like, oh, but it was so much fun. But then I looked at it and I'm like, wow, it's easier to bury a tradition than a child. And then that image right there of like the huge tire with the small child and just the comparison and stuff like that. I don't know if this falls under scare tactics, but it's definitely something that makes you think You know, when you have something that your emotional reaction is really positive, and then somebody posits it with like data that's like, you know, it might have been nice for you, but there's actually like these tragedies that have happened, was kind of what I was thinking about when I started thinking about the issue that I haven't really talked about with the group, but I was talking to you about it, so I feel like I've already posited it, is when I was meeting with all the different members of the community, I talked to the athletic director and Barry Jarvis of Parks and Rec, and then various parents, and what I kept hearing was that we have some work to do around like parents modeling good behavior with alcohol, and where it was becoming a problem was at athletic events. Because what would happen, athletic events, like if anybody has kids in sports, it's already like kind of an emotional event. Like you see your kid performing and you want them to do really well. And so even though it's still a minority of the population, what I was hearing from the AD and from Barry was that these parents are making these events really unpleasant. Because what they do is they'll drink during the athletic event, get a little rowdy, start arguing with the coach, and just kind of cause bad feelings and not behave their best. So it made me think of like, you know, there's a tradition of like, if you're in the summer and you're hanging out and there's just a sporting event going on, that people pair it with a beer. Like that's not an unusual tradition. It's not something that people I think would bat an eye at. But this made me think about what could we do as a coalition, and do we even want to take this on as a coalition to try to curb some of these behaviors, since we're hearing that it's kind of causing some negative energy at what I think is one of like the central hubs of this community. Like athletics seem to be like a really big thing, like academics as well, but every time I go outside, there's a track meet going on, people are playing tennis, like everybody's walking their dogs, like it's a really good, healthy, positive thing. And from what I've heard, there's only a small amount of people that are causing these problems, but it's a small enough group that's loud enough that it's causing issues.
I think with something like this, I interpret this as a scare tactic
Yeah.
as I read it, but what I've learned to do is not make it about what I'm saying or about me, but what is the data?
Mm-hmm.
You know, 10 kids are killed every summer from tractor accidents.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is, it's, you know, then you have a statement like that, but
Right.
it's the data and not about the person.
Mm-hmm. Does that help it be more digestible?
I think to me, then the person isn't like, well, I don't like that guy or that lady. Like, they're always trying to tell us something. Well, no, I'm just sharing this information with you.
Right, yeah.
And to your point about that data, what I thought was powerful on the postcard, it said like 91%, I forgot, of Long Meadow
91%, yeah, you
families
got it.
do not
Yeah.
post in their homes. And then if there is a stat on, when I look at our sporting events and the families that go, it is a beautiful event. I see so many families, their younger kids are there, they bring their own lawn chairs. I see a lot of positivity and socialization. So I didn't even know that was an issue. So to draw awareness to something while reinforcing that a lot of positive things happen
Yeah.
at our athletic events.
And now, sorry.
Go ahead.
This isn't a school issue, but I was on Halloween, I was walking down Green Acre, and it's gone, it feels like you're walking through a frat, like on a university campus with little cute kids in costumes, and all the parents are walking around with their red Solo cup. It was shocking, just like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah. Is there like a demographic that fits the behavior? Like, because this is me just going off on a limb, but I remember hearing about Tent City. Was that about 20 years ago?
No, that was
Tennessee
about
ended-
10 years,
I would say, you know, less than, I think the last 10 city was.
8 years ago?
Yeah, maybe 8.
I was gonna say 10 years.
Well, I would say around COVID, maybe we stopped.
Right, because my
City.
daughter graduated in 2020, and I think it was the year like right before that.
I mean,
Yeah, they
Tent
didn't
City does
before our
have
kids.
a
They didn't
history,
do it-
and
they
it's got
didn't-
got
they didn't
better
do it
over the
dump
years.
team, no.
The less issues that the schools
I think it's
had,
before
police department had.
Yeah.
Because I was
I know
wondering.
my
Raymore
neighbors-
definitely did Tent City.
Okay.
And so her kids were seniors when I were freshmen.
Because I don't know, this is just a guess on my part, but you know, like when we look at data with youth, sometimes what we'll see is like a cohort effect, you know, where it's like this 8th grade class from the beginning just had more issues, right? And the drinking rates are higher and whatever.
It started in kindergarten.
But I'm wondering, you know, Long Meadow, it seems like they've moved away from some of the wilder drinking party type scenes, but I'm wondering if there's a residual, you know, like if there's like, because it's so hard, because the group right here, everybody's like, we're not tent citying, we're not, but we know that people do. But is it something that was bigger in the past and they now have children? Like, is there this, I'm just wondering if there's any connection there between when these kids came of age, like, were there 18-year-olds during Tent City that are now 28 or 38-year-olds who are trick-or-treating with solo cups, or is there no
I
connection?
don't know, but it was like, it was shocking how, I mean,
Yeah.
it looked like a frat party.
Wow.
And the tent city was actually meant for them not to drink. It's the kids would go and
Well, they would
bury
bury
the
it,
alcohol.
yeah.
It wasn't like the parents were like, drink up. It was, I mean, I'm sure it was the ignoring is allowing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it was meant for them to have a safe place, in theory. Yeah, but I don't know.
I mean, the sporting events, I haven't seen as much of, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, the obnoxious behavior. But I hate that is the modeling.
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, one of my boys was a lacrosse player, and I just thought, good Lord, getting through that whole experience. I'm the only living parent, of these 4 kids. It was traumatizing. Because, yeah, man, it was you get to the playoff season, and there had to be like a parent gathering. I'm totally gonna get shot by somebody when I
Yeah,
leave
this
the
is why
building.
we can't
But
have
this
it
is-
recorded.
Yeah,
But yeah.
but there, there were a couple parents who were, but they had the pregame, and
There
I
were
was like, this is
Yeah.
really
There were
not.
emails telling parents where to go
Yeah,
to
it-
drink
yeah.
before the games.
I was
Just-
When I was explaining the rare cases that we've had, school events here where we've had issues, there's always that collaboration between the schools and the police department with the athletic director, and we work together to take care of that when it has happened, so. But there is that collaboration between the two organizations, so.
Yeah, I
And-
just wish that it was just like, you can enjoy the game without the
Right.
substances.
Well, and now there's the problem that at hockey, there's an open bar. There's a bar at the hockey rink.
Oh, okay.
So people go to the bar
Uh-huh.
during the games.
And then they drive their kids home?
Is that the one in West Springfield?
Uh-huh.
Olympia? Yeah.
Oh, Olympia, okay.
So I have.
And apparently some of the principals or superintendents have asked for the bar to be closed, and they said no.
Yeah. We're going to run out of time to get through this, but if you could go to the next slide. This is something I do want to dig into. I'm glad that you mentioned lacrosse, even if it's a dangerous thing to say, because what I heard from a lot of different interviews is that it's hockey, lacrosse, and more of the hyper-masculinized sports. And what I heard from other people I interviewed is that, it can be tricky with lacrosse because the athletic department and other organizations respect to a certain extent how much money they raise. Lacrosse has done a really good job of providing for their student athletes and making it happen. But because of that, there's a little less sway, that other community members who are involved have over it because they're so independent, and it can be hard to try to rein in the traditions that they've decided to adopt as a group. So I was thinking, it almost might be helpful if there was a youth lacrosse league to get them involved in the coalition.
There is a youth
Yeah,
lacrosse
there
league.
is a-
There's
Yeah.
definitely
There
a
is.
youth lacrosse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I would say, I think also the whole thing that started happening when our kids were young with the club sports
Mhm.
and tournaments.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it's a whole cultural thing of
Yeah.
you go away for the weekend. I still remember the first tournament I went to, our kid was in 5th grade. We go to this tournament and the parents literally all brought alcohol to just hang out at the hotel. And I was like, what is going on right now? But that was what their plan was to do. Go to the games and then they were just gonna get drunk at the hotel.
Hmm.
And that's a culture that goes with a lot of the club sports
The
and
traveling,
tournaments.
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't know how to tackle
Yeah,
that.
I don't either. I think we got to start with local
I
control.
did just give you a contact for Long Meadow Little League, who I think
Oh,
would
okay.
join the coalition.
Thank you.
But I don't know the youth lacrosse.
I don't know who's in charge of
So this is the part where I was like, in my mind, we were only going to be 20 minutes into the meeting. I'd be like, okay, we're going to have this huge brainstorm session about like how to like target this issue. So I'll rush through this and we can get into it deeper before, but like, I just found this graphic about like good sport parents and bad sport parents, just talking about behavioral patterns. And so what I identified as the issue through conversations is that intoxicated parents are behaving poorly at youth sporting events. It's a minority, but they're loud. What I heard from both the AD and Barry is that no one really wants to address the troublemakers. Like if you're in a position of authority, it just kind of antagonizes them. But historically, there used to be parents involved in the same sport that had enough social sway that they could interrupt the behavior, which I thought was really interesting. And I thought that was like an interesting angle to explore. You know, like if we had more athletic involvement with our coalition, perhaps we could identify those people, you know, like, because if it's like, let's say there's only 5% of parents, like maybe not with lacrosse and the traveling teams and stuff like that, but let's say like there's a small percentage of like football parents, you know, that are tailgating or something like that, and they're causing problems, but there's a couple parents in the group that are able to be like, hey, cut it out. Like that would be really helpful, especially if other people in authority can't do so. But I wouldn't know how to identify those people yet, but I just wanted to put it out there in case there's connections. The other thing is just needing to determine if this is something that the community wants to support, seeing a change happen in this area. And if you go to the next slide, Marty, I have just the beginnings of what we have been asking in the parent survey. And you'll notice, in case we run out of time, you have this handout. There's a QR code on it. If you could just get your friends to do this survey, and maybe your friends who don't live like you, you know, to get a different perspective, and also to try to get dads to do it, because historically we get a lot of moms doing surveys, but it's harder to get dads to weigh in. So the dads that are here, thank you. But so far I only have 48 people who've done our survey, and it's been out for a couple months. I've shared it every week on social media. Marty has sent it out. Tom has sent it out. I've sent it to the middle schools. And what usually happens is when it goes out in a newsletter or an email blast, I'll get about 10 responses, which is cool. But I'm certainly not reaching, like, what is the population for the high school, at least 900 or?
A little under 900
Yeah.
students, yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
it's hard to go out by this data because it's so tiny.
What
But
if it were an assignment for the kids to get their parents to do it?
ooh,
Because think of like the first week of school. My kids always come home, they're like, here's your homework, fill out the forms. And I'm like, for sure, and I'm gonna be honest, I haven't filled out the survey. I've seen all the emails, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. But if it was an assignment that my son's like, I need this, you better do it. Sorry.
is that something we could do?
Maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe at that high school health classes, you know, I don't know, I don't know that it could be a universal thing, but.
But for high school, but maybe high school classes for like a homework credit, or like, does that ever happen?
I'd say if it's, well,
I did.
I think
I had
having a child's,
Class and-
a grade of a child dependent on something a parent does, it's generally not considered to be good practice.
She doesn't mean as a grade, she means try putting it out at the beginning of
Yeah.
the year with all the
Yeah.
rest of the
Yeah.
forms.
Right.
But what
Yeah,
I
it
would
wouldn't
say
go
is
against
I-
your child, but it's like,
Yeah.
if I see it in there, I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
need to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do the survey,
It's really
and I
long.
took it on my phone.
Oh, was it
And
not
it's
good?
very long, and it's
Yeah.
hard on your phone to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you? Thank you. Just say, don't do it on their phone.
Yeah, that would have been good. I sent it out in like 215
Groups.
groups, but all moms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did, people said they would do it, I don't know. Maybe they actually did, but they're all moms. I don't have a dad group.
Yeah.
Just to go
I'll
back
have to
to
work on
the, I don't know what, okay. I think the athletic director finally told some of the booster groups, you can't be promoting drinking on your emails
Mhm.
that are going out to people.
Good.
And I think that like needs to be done.
Okay.
But I think, and I haven't personally seen at youth sports people like being rowdy because they were drinking.
Mhm.
But I do think that there are people who don't understand what they're modeling to their kids, and that if they did understand, they would stop that behavior.
Mhm.
So I just think if we could do some education around that, I think that would probably be effective. I think a lot of people just don't realize, like, if every time you go to your kid's Little League game, you're drinking, then they think that that's
That's
what you're
you do
supposed to do,
relax.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So I think if they just kind of, there was that, the football ad that Close has done in
Yeah.
the past, something like that, I think just, and if we get parents when they have younger kids, I think
Yeah.
that would be really effective.
Yeah, yeah,
Because by the
yeah.
time they get to high school, then they're like, oh, this is, they
Right.
kind of treat high schoolers differently.
Well, I think it's easier to do, as you just said, like as a fellow boy mom, you're just sort of like, they don't even hear anything I say. Like, I think it can be easy to convince yourself, like, they're not really watching me anymore, but they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be maybe the different messaging you should do
Yeah.
when they're in high school, because you're
Right.
right. Like, you do start to be like, oh, they don't even want to talk to me.
Mhm.
No, they do want to talk to you, they just
Yeah.
don't know how to do it. And
Right,
So
right.
you need to create different opportunities.
This does appear to be pretty long. To look at it, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, it's hard to look at on a phone, the survey, yeah.
Sorry. There's always more questions I
So
would
maybe on
ask.
paper would be easier.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that's what you were kind of saying, that if you got it as a form.
Right.
But
Not
then
so
you gotta
much.
process it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much the form, but if it was like, as part of this, please fill out the survey. You know, if
Yeah.
it's like, I have a checklist of, I need to sign this, this,
Yeah.
and this, I need
Yes.
to take the survey.
I know, I dread
Well,
these
maybe we
piles
could,
of homework.
could we do it at the beginning of the school year mailing?
Yeah, and we could. We don't, there's not a lot of hard copy stuff we send out anymore.
It could be
but-
electronic
Yeah.
still, but maybe if
Yeah.
it's just packaged with, you know, other school-related, like, oh,
Yeah.
like, because I'm the same way, like, I'll see things and I'm like, oh my goodness, but then you're like, oh, I have the bundle. It's like doing your taxes. You're like, okay, Tuesday's the
do
day.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if sometimes, if it's a blast and it's going to everybody, then no one feels special about getting that survey.
Yeah.
If you can make people feel special about getting the survey, like this survey is going to parents of children enrolled in a ninth grade health class. You know, we're trying to
Yeah.
shape our programming for your child over their next 4 years. Sometimes you might get a better response if you think it's being sent to you in some personal way.
Mm-hmm.
I also think we just need to put fewer questions on it.
Yeah, I know.
Like, even though you may want answers to all of them, if
Mhm.
you care more about response rate, then you just
Yeah.
have to make it a shorter survey.
Or is there an incentive, like some sort of a drawing or?
Well, when we get into the budget,
Dash
we could
gift
talk
card.
about why there wasn't an incentive so far, but,
I will
but
say,
no.
first thing I always want to know when I open a survey is how long is this going to take me?
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I was going through it and I used a template that Paul used before, and I think I took some questions out and added, like, I didn't make it any longer, but it's long. It is long, you know,
Often, like,
and,
the first line is, please complete this survey, it will only take you like.
Yes.
45 minutes.
It better, it better take 5 minutes or less,
Yeah,
or
like
people are not
a
gonna do
very
it.
short
Yeah.
period of time.
I think that's really good feedback, and I think we can do that. And it almost might be worth shortening the survey now and redistributing it and just having different data, because I only have 48 responses from the first one, so it wouldn't be that jarring. So anyhow, we can go through this really fast. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but some of my ideas around like any kind of like changing social norms is like, we already have the laws in place. Like I did a bunch of prep work for this meeting and I was like, what do we have as Long Meadow as far as like parents modeling bad behavior and da-da-da-da. And I think the biggest thing that I was surprised by is just that like, there's laws all over, bylaws that just say like no alcohol or drug use is allowed on town property. Like you can get a special permit for an event, but you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it on school property. So the fact that this is happening, I was like, shouldn't people just know this? So then Shelley and I did a drive around town, and then I've done a couple walks on my own, and I gotta say, there's no signage about alcohol or substance use on most of the fields. So that could be a really easy fix. Like we could just go around, like if you go to the next slide, I started taking pictures. So like Wolf Swamp, which is like one of the newer, more renovated fields, does have language about, oh wait, sorry, that's not Wolf Swamp, that's the tennis courts. So the tennis courts, all it says is like no food allowed on the courts and no skateboarding and stuff like that, but there's nothing about alcohol. Not that I think tennis courts are a high-risk area for drinking and partying, I don't think it is. But what I thought was interesting is that, you know, Long Meadow will tell you about no food, but we're obviously really concerned about dogs, because like, contact the police if you see dogs, and don't
Or
put-
snowmobiles.
Or no snowmobiles, you know? So it was interesting, there were, if you look at Wolf Swamp, there were so many signs worried about the grass. But like only one sign, which if you click through again, Marty, one more. So Wolf Swamp, I circled the parts where it does address alcohol. It's the very first thing on the list, so it's not that they don't do it. And then there was also language about like no profanity, bad behavior, whatever. But it was much easier to see where you could park, what grass couldn't be trod on, where dogs are allowed, da-da-da-da. And then I just also showed some other pictures because even though I'm looking for areas where we can make it more robust, I also wanted to point out, like, they had a great thing about everybody's scores for cross-country and track. Conservation area has such a nice sign. But I was hoping Barry would show up because her AED box over at Wolf Swamp was empty, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure, so I wanted her to be here to talk about, like, I'm not sure if it's a seasonal thing, do they only stock it when, like, the fields are being used more actively? And then I just wrote Narcan there because that's one of my passions, is that we start getting Narcan in these little emergency boxes. So my thought, I know we're already over time, I'm so sorry. Can you go to the next one, Marty? You can skip this. So this is like the only thing I came up with so far, which I don't think will apply. But like, trying to find a way to, communicate, like, we're not judging your behavior. We just want you to know, like, you can't do it here. So trying to craft some messaging, and it could be as simple right now of just making sure that there's signage up, reminding people, like, alcohol's not here. Because what I heard from, like, Barry was, she's like, they're doing it on the down low, like, they're putting it in their Stanley Cups. Like, they're not flaunting it, but, so there's some people that know they shouldn't, but they are. And if, like you said, like, if they knew that they were modeling, they would probably want to do better. So if we also just reminded them, like, you really shouldn't do that there, you're like, okay, like, it might make it a little bit easier just starting there. Could you do the next one, Marty?
What's in your Stanley Cups?
So we will definitely table this for another meeting, but I did want to say that, just give you an overview of how we're funded. So we are in year 8 of our, so we had a 5-year grant and now we're in the second 5-year grant. So we're like working towards year 10. We're currently in year 8. We have $625,000 that were given for a 5-year time period, giving us a $125,000 budget. So the salary for the director coordinator is $83,000. Fringe benefits on average have been costing us around $35,000 and change. And I'm going to need to sit down with Tom Mazza because I might not be understanding the numbers all the time correctly. But when I tried to go through Munis and figure out what the rhyme or reason is around the fringe benefits, they vary. Like sometimes it's 31%, sometimes it's 55%, and I don't understand the variation. And I also don't want to be quoted as saying this because maybe it could be an accounting issue. Like we are a fiscal year that goes from September to September. They go from, July to July, so there could be some wiggle room that I'm not quite understanding. But I did just want to make the group aware that this is something I'm trying to figure out because it leaves us very, very little money for any programming. We only have $125,000. So we have some carryover, which is why I've been able to do all these mailings and postcards, and Nilda was able to share some community engagement fund money. And next year I have the budget already set up with whatever carryover money is left. But after that, then it's kind of like, I'm not really sure what to do. We can certainly apply for other grants, but I was hoping that there would be some way that we could work with the town to figure out if there was a way to just reduce the fringe, because it just is really high.
What is fringe? What does that even mean?
Oh, sorry. Fringe is like what they charge. Like usually there's a percentage rate that, like, I wish I could explain this better, but like you have retirement taken out of your, you have retirement benefits, you have health insurance benefits, and like when you have an employer, you pay a certain percentage of your health out of pocket, and then they cover a certain percentage. And so some municipalities will have a flat rate, like retirement is 9%. And so if that's getting taken out of the grant, then 9% of the salary is taken out of the grant. And then health insurance might be different, and I don't know, I don't fully understand it, is part of why.
I don't think they're charging you just fringe. I think they're charging you like an indirect rate, which is like fringe benefits, but it's also like office space, like things like that. It's like basically the non-tangible, like,
So that wasn't negotiated as an
costs.
in-kind?
Yeah, I'm not, I think we'll explore it further. I did get some preliminary information from the town manager and the finance director, and Ananda and I have been talking about it. So I think we're still trying to understand the fringe charge back to the grant. If there is any wiggle room, we're working through that to see, because to the extent that we can reduce the fringe charge, that would free up funding for grant activity.
Yeah, which would be great. And I remember I shared the agenda and Haley immediately was like, sending me grant opportunities. I'm like, oh, that's right, I didn't think about the RISE grants, so there's other options. And I was hoping Finn would would be here tonight too, because there's also the question of like opioid abatement funds, which the town does have. And I think for right now, it's just being held, because I think that there's a lot of concern about who would benefit more from it. And if we have a prevention coalition that's already well entrenched in doing work for the last 9 or however many years, it might be a way to expand our program work. But this is all that we can talk about later, because we've already gone 10 minutes over time and you guys have been so patient. Thank you so much. The last thing I did want to say though is I do have lawn signs, and I was hoping that everybody would take some to put on their lawns. And if you have friends that want a lawn sign as well, to take enough for your friends. I sent out an electronic form that if you take, like, let's say you take 5 signs and you actually give them out to friends, just fill out the form with their addresses so that at the end of June I can collect them and bring them back. But come get a sign.
I've got to go meet a bus, but I can take probably at least a dozen signs. I've got
All right, I'll put a dozen aside for you. Oh, you mean you want
They can't all go on Dover.
I didn't even, that's not even my neighborhood, I was very strategic.
I live on the loop cul-de-sac, on Bradley Road. Yeah.
No, she's leaving for a bus, so I can't talk to everybody like I would.